hey, man, it's exporting fruit. It's certainly not in a war stance. Everybody's been issued gas masks. The Israeli army is one of the best trained in the world, but they're exporting stuff like crazy. In fact, Israel just won a Nobel Peace Prize for mathematics, another one. So it's like Israel continues to produce, and they are living at peace, in my opinion. But this loose Confederacy of Nations is looming on the horizon. We saw 2 weeks ago the Russians putting an S-300 anti-aircraft, anti-missile system in Abkhazia. Abkhazia is the northwestern part of the province of Georgia, the breakaway province of Georgia, okay, which is the southernmost tip of Russia. And the Ruskies are in there with the S-300. Basically, it's a chess move. It's a strategic move because that eliminates pretty much the northern route for Israeli planes to strike Iran. And, of course, they do this right before yesterday when they're dumping the fuel rods in. So now the reactor's hot. Within 8 months to a year, Iran will have enough material to build a nuclear bomb. Will they? Who knows? But what's alarming to me is the Russians and Iran, which are the two top nations of the Ezekiel 38 prophecy, are in bed with each other. And that's obvious. That's obvious. And then moving from there, we see the other nations like Turkey just recently turning towards Iran. Now, Turkey's been looking at the West literally for years, ever since Ataturk at the end of World War I. Tried to bring Turkey into a Western culture, forbid people to wear the fez. It's 98% Muslim. I got it, but it's still a secular society. But it could change in a heartbeat. And recently, within the last month, Turkey, specifically after the flotilla incident off the shores of Israel, Turkey got really ticked off at Israel and turned towards the east, turned towards Iran, and because Iran is Shia Muslim and it's under Sharia law. That brings into play the other three nations, which is part of the prophecy: Meshach, Tubal, and Togarmah. All those three ancient nations now comprise the modern nation of Turkey. So, look, we're told to watch. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how it's going to happen. But I truly believe that we are very, very close, precipitously close, to seeing some sort of a conflict in the Middle East, and it will not be pretty.
Now, let me ask you a question. First, I'm going to ask you, one of the brothers in the chat room wants to know, he says, will the current peace process still be part of the time of the Gentiles? Will there be a peace treaty that divides the land of Israel? Go ahead and, if you can, cover those right quick, and then I'll have a couple questions for you, too.
Sure. Well, we know that whoever makes the peace treaty with Israel, there's Israel is, yes, there's a peace treaty, but the guy who does it is the Antichrist. And what Israel gets from it is they are allowed to rebuild the temple on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. That's the big deal. They're allowed to build the temple on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, the third temple. That's also prophesied. And you know what? We will see it. There are people who, argue with me incessantly. Argue all you want. The fact is that prophecy is being fulfilled. You can believe whatever you want to believe, and I'm going to continue to believe what I believe and talk about it incessantly till the cows come home. If you want to argue about it, it's pointless because it goes nowhere. Prophecy is being fulfilled. The Antichrist will cut the deal, will divide the land, and will create some sort of a treaty which will allow the Israelis to rebuild their temple on the Temple Mount. And then whoever does that, I blogged about this at my blog on Friday. Watch Iraq for the strong man. Watch the king of Jordan make a move. Could be wrong, that's all speculation on my part. And it's not prophecy, it's just speculation. But it's a good, well thought out scenario. If you want to read that, go to lamarzulli.wordpress.com and you can check that out and the other blogs that are there.
Okay, all right. What do you think is the? Because I'm kind of mixed up where it says that he shall confirm the covenant or strengthen the covenant for 1 week. What is the covenant? Could that be the Oslo Peace Accord covenant, or is it going to be some covenant that Obama signs for a specific amount of time, but it's not 7 years? You just, interim peace deal, and the Antichrist comes and strengthens that one, or is the peace deal already in existence?
No, Oslo was a step to it, but it's certainly not the 7-year treaty that we're talking about, mentioned in the book of Daniel, which you just quoted from. That is a totally different deal. That treaty is the one that is done by the Antichrist. And that is a specific treaty, 7 years. And 3.5 years are a time of peace and prosperity. The next 3.5 years, all hell breaks loose, literally.
Why does it say he shall confirm the covenant? Is he coming to? The word confirm means to strengthen. What is in existence already for him to do that? Is it just pieces of a so-called future covenant? I mean, is it the people from the West made a deal with, and then all war broke out?
Well, we don't know. I mean, quite honestly, I don't know, and that's why we need to hold on to everything loosely and watch and see how it plays out. I mean, and there's endless speculation. Do we see the treaty first? Is Ezekiel 38 after that? Is it before that? Is it Psalm 83? What about Isaiah 17? I mean, everyone speculates, and the bottom line for me is that I believe that whatever war happens, whether it's Psalm 83, Ezekiel 38, Isaiah 17, some combination which they all follow very closely on each other's heels, at some point it will trigger the supernatural. And that's what the biblical commentators and a lot of the prophecy guys today refuse to get into. It's going to trigger the supernatural, and we will see supernatural manifestations like unprecedented on this planet. We're already seeing them. Stuff's already manifesting, but when it happens, it'll trigger stuff like never before. Absolutely unprecedented.
Yes, indeed. I have a caller. His name is Michael Parker. He's one of the brothers on the Blog Talk Radio with his radio program. Mike, are you there?
Yeah, brother.
Hey, go. You have a question you want to ask?
Yeah, you were actually getting right into what it was that I wanted to ask him, and in reference to the Obama being involved. Let's hypothetically speculate that Obama does conquer for his administration a peace treaty with Abbas, with the Palestinians, and with Netanyahu and Israel.
Right.
I read an article, and I've posted it on my website, that just about a month and a half ago, Abbas told Mitchell that go ahead and tell Netanyahu that we will give him control of all of the holy sites in Old Jerusalem. Now, there was no specific detail of that. What would that consist of other than the Temple Mount, if that was true?
Well, there are other sites. For instance, David's tomb, Rachel's tomb. I mean, all that stuff, which have been disputed. Abbas has no power to give the Temple Mount. That lies under the King of Jordan, King Abdullah II. That's under his jurisdiction and his jurisdiction alone. Period. Abbas cannot do that unless the King of Jordan somehow has allowed him to cut that deal. That's why the King of Jordan will be involved in who's ever, the deal with the Israelis to build that Temple Mount. He has to be. The King of Jordan is the Hashemite king. Hashem is the uncle of Muhammad. So the Hashemites are direct descendants from the Prophet Muhammad. King Abdullah traces his lineage back 1,300 years and is a blood relative to the Prophet. So he has great sway in the Muslim world, both between Sunni and Shia Muslim. He controls the Temple Mount. He also controls the sites of Mecca and Medina. I mean, this guy is huge in the Muslim world. Huge in the Muslim world. He also had an American mother and a Muslim father. So he's westernized, genetically, but also westernized. He was schooled in the West. So he's one smart cookie. He's very articulate, very smart, and Jordan really has no oil. So, Jordan got sort of gypped on that, on the whole oil deal. And Iraq now is enervated. They're under the Maliki government, which has been propped up by U.S. forces forever. And I have stated this before. Watch the King of Jordan come riding in on a white horse and bring peace to this, because Iraq is a mess, and everybody knows Iraq's a mess, and Iran is chomping at the bit trying to get that oil. Chomping at the bit. The one guy who can bring peace to the region is the King of Jordan. He's the only guy. Maliki's had, 6-7 years to do it, hasn't done doodly squat. Sectarian violence is the same as it always has been. So this is the scenario, and I blogged about this on Friday. It is a scenario. It's a possibility. It's not biblical, but it's a very strong possibility of happening. And for those of you who are out there who aren't familiar with your history, after World War I, the Hashemites controlled and set up a kingdom in Syria, Iraq, and Jordan. Syria and Iraq, their kingdoms were overthrown by the Ba'ath Party. We all know what happened there. And Saddam eventually took over, and the rest is history. The Ba'ath Party is alive and well in Syria today. But Syria and Iraq, at one point after World War II, when those nations were, or World War I, when those nations were newly formed, Hashemite kings ruled in those kingdoms, as well as Jordan. Now the Hashemites only rule in one area, and that's Jordan. The King of Jordan, about when the Iraqis were considering their constitution, the King of Jordan offered the Iraqis a constitutional monarchy, but it didn't happen, it didn't fly. So just watch what happens. I mean, I've been waiting, and now that the United States has pulled out, and why now? I mean, this is the worst possible time for U.S. forces to be leaving that place. It's all orchestrated, in my opinion. This is what I write about. I've written about this before. If I'm right, then we will have witnessed a Luciferian dialectic. And a Luciferian dialectic is this: conflict, counter-conflict, synthesis. The conflict is 9/11. The counter-conflict is Afghan, but then we go into Iraq. The synthesis is the King of Jordan riding into Iraq, creating a petrodollar new capital in Baghdad, or not in Baghdad, I'm sorry, the ancient city of Babylon, which he resurrects with petrodollars now that he'll have at his disposal. He then solves the 70-year-old conundrum in the Middle East, right, or 60-year-old conundrum in the Middle East, I should say, by granting most of Jordan to the Palestinians as their homeland. 75% of the population of Jordan already is Palestinian. He then, because he controls the Temple Mount, allows the Israelis to rebuild their temple on the Temple Mount. And if he does all this, guess who he is? There's no doubt. There can be no doubt. But it remains to be seen, and it's a scenario. But it's certainly a scenario that we could see happen any day.
Very interesting. What about your? This is probably going to be unpolitically correct, but what about your opinions on the possibility that Barack Hussein Obama is really a Muslim?
Well, look, that's where I'm at with the thing. He had a Muslim father. He was in Muslim countries. He was raised and went to madrasas, all right? That's huge. I went to Catholic school as a youngster, all right? And you don't escape indoctrination. You just don't. Then he converts, supposedly, according to Billy Graham, to Christianity. But he sits in the Reverend Wright's church for 20 years. How could you possibly sit there? Is he born again? I would say no. Say absolutely not. Does he have a professing faith in Christ? I have no idea. If you take the man at his face value, he talks about it, my Christian faith, but they've got him on, on YouTube. You can go and you can watch him, and he makes a mistake. He goes, my Muslim faith, and then the reporter corrects him, and he says, oh, you mean your Christian faith, right?